What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a different version of Bill's Chat as we are going to dip our toe into these NBA playoffs. I am Josh McCarty, the usual co-host of Bill's Chat. You recognize this guy down there, Stokes, the usual third man of Bill's Chat. Stokes, how you doing?
Doing great. Doing great.
And then our friend on the show tonight is Magic, longtime friend of ours, big NBA fan, first time on the Bill's Chat channel. Magic, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Happy to join you guys.
And now we look, we know this is mainly a football audience. So if you're here thinking this is a football video, there is plenty of draft content coming this week, but this is not what this episode is about. If you are somebody that found this episode and are looking for some NBA playoff talk, you have come to the right place. We're going to break down all 8 series, give our predictions, talk about the storylines in each series, and we're going to have some fun with it. Magic has requested that we start with the East. And guys, I can't think of a better series to start with in the East than what I think is the series of the first round, at least in the East. And that is Stokes, your New York Knicks, taking on the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, based on the sports books, the Sixers are a slight favorite. You got them at minus 120 to win the series. The Knicks also minus money, minus 108. The Knicks were 3-1 against the Sixers this regular season. You can kind of throw those records out just because Joel Embiid only played in one of those games. But it is notable that the Sixers' highest point output in those games was only 96 points. So I think when you looked at how things were shaping up the last week of the NBA season, and you looked at what was going on in the East, it felt to me, Stokes, that there was this idea that whoever could avoid the Sixers was doing it right because they were getting Joel Embiid right. As a Knicks fan, did you feel that?
Um, yeah, I mean, and going into the final day, I thought that the Knicks might be able to still avoid the Sixers, but I think the thing that people are most afraid of is that it is highly likely that if you're playing the Sixers, you're not going to have the best player in that series, and that's what's scary when you're talking about a 7-game sample. So I understand that, but I think that this Knicks squad, like the way they're built, the way their mindset is, I don't think they really care who they face. Like I think after they played Boston a couple weeks ago and won that game, and also when they played the Sixers last with Embiid, they blew them out then. So I think they are really confident. And like every single one of those players have that that dog mentality, and they don't really care who it is that they face.
It's such a unique situation where you have a 7 seed that was in the play-in tournament that realistically speaking probably should have been the 2 seed. If they just didn't lose their best player, they almost definitely would have been the 2 seed. So I understand the fear factor. Joel Embiid is just such a unique athlete, and the way he can change a basketball game as one player, both on the offensive and defensive end, is something that you can almost not even calculate into the formula of how you're going to do this. But I will tell you all, I watched that play-in game. I watched that play-in game with my heart for you, Stokes, thinking, I hope your Knicks can avoid the Sixers. As that game was going on, Magic, I noticed something about Joel Embiid that stood out to me. It was he was not moving around well. His lateral agility was not there. He was not active on the defensive end. I think that he hit a couple big shots late that did a great job of masking the fact that he didn't look like vintage Joel Embiid. And you can say whether, hey, he's just getting back into game shape. They had a couple days off before this series kicked off. Fine. I came away from that very concerned from the Sixers standpoint that just because Joel Embiid's out there, they may not be getting the MVP from last year that they are going to need to win this series. What did you think about what you saw from Joel Embiid in that game?
He's a big guy coming back from a knee injury or
Right.
surgery that they will not actually claim as a surgery. But based on him coming back this season, I think we all know kind of they went in, they cleaned it up. They took, I think, a meniscus out so that he can come back this season. No, as someone who likes Embiid, I wouldn't say this. But if you were a hater, you could say that you saw Embiid in his playoff form already. I wouldn't say that because I like him.
Yeah.
What people are saying.
All right, let's kick it around. We laid out kind of some of the big storylines here. But the Knicks also are dealing with some injuries on their end. They are not fully formed right now. Magic, since Stokes is the Knicks fan, we'll let him go last on this one. How do you see this series playing out? And if you want to let us know why, feel free to.
I think this is going to be one of those good old 90s kind of Eastern Conference defensive battles, low scoring, that people are going to be like, oh, back in my day, the league was so tough. The way Tibbs wants to play, the way that Embiid might have to play just because he's not really in his peak MVP form. I think this is the most interesting series in the East. I agree. I'm going to take the Sixers in 6. I have no faith in them to win a Game 7 on the road, so it's got to be 6. And I think the Knicks are a great story. I mean, they're the 2 seed, but at some point, these minutes have to take their toll on these guys playing 48 minutes of a 53-minute game, and I think Nick Nurse is better than Tibbs. I think they're
okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but I mean, Nick Nurse has a title. Nick Nurse has proven with a Raptors team that I don't think was all that good to win the title, and the years after, once they lost Kawhi and just had a talent drain, they were still kind of competitive. You can look at their stats over the years; they're consistent in defense, consistent in forcing turnovers, and I think that's a Nurse thing, not a talent thing. So I think he's going to be able to bring out the best in these guys, and maybe we finally get the good Joel Embiid playoff series.
So to me, this I think you'll know a lot about how this series is going to go after about the first quarter of the first game. I did not like anything I saw out of Embiid in the play-in game. I came away very concerned for the Sixers standpoint. And I start thinking about the reasons why I was afraid of the Sixers, and they all went out the window with what I saw from Embiid in that game. I could be wrong. He could show up and be a monster game 1, and if I see that, I would go live bet the Sixers if I could to win the series. I am not anticipating that. I'm going to take the Knicks to win this in 5. I think they are going to be able to expose some of the deficiencies in Joel Embiid's game right now if he doesn't have that lateral agility. And you know how much they like to do the pick and roll with Jalen Brunson. They're going to put him in uncomfortable situations where he can't just sit under the rim like he did against Miami and just kind of take defensive series off. Now, I did hear one thing that's interesting. The Knicks are one of the more slow-paced offenses, which could work in his favor as he works back into game shape. But I like this Knicks team. I think, like you said, they play really tough defense. They are a top 10 defense. The Sixers are a top 12 defense too. This really is a good coaching matchup. But I do think that the Knicks are going to find a way to force Embiid into the fire on defense and really test it out. And I almost wonder if that play-in game was the worst thing to happen for the Sixers, because if you hadn't seen that and you go into it game planning for game 1 like Joel Embiid is going to be Joel Embiid, it's gonna alter your game plan. But I do think there is a chance that Thibodeau goes out there and forces Embiid to beat them, and really tries to take away some of the other guys. And we'll see. Can Maxey step up and be a superstar? Like that's one of the reasons why they were comfortable trading away James Harden, because they said that he has that capability. He certainly has the opportunity here in this first series while Joel Embiid tries to get his legs back. So I am taking the Knicks in 5. So Magic, we already disagree. Stokes, how do you see it?
Hashtag Knicks tape. Of course, I think the Knicks are going to win this series. I think it'll be either 5 or 7. I don't think they're going to take them out in Philly. I think it'll be one of the games in New York. I think that just the way this team plays and the camaraderie in which they play with, they seem to be playing like these high level types of games or mindset wise for a month now, and I feel like that is going to have them best suited for this type of series against the Sixers. And as you mentioned, I think they're going to try and put Embiid in some precarious situations, make him try and cover whether it's Jalen Brunson, whether it's Dante DiVincenzo, someone handling the ball. They're going to try to get him out on them and try to cover them laterally. The centers that the Knicks have, they're not really a huge threat offensively. Mitchell Robinson and also Isaiah Hartenstein, like those guys aren't going to be big threats offensively. But if they're going to roll to the rim on like a pick and roll situation, they'll be good lob guys. But they're going to make Embiid work on the offensive side too. There's no stopping them, but I think they'll be able to hold their own against them for a good portion of it. But I think the Knicks are going to go out to try and make a statement in game one, and it's gonna roll. And I feel like the Knicks are gonna roll in this series.
The biggest takeaway for me, the thing that tilted me toward the Knicks, is this was the last series I really turned on. This was the one that I really kept going back and forth on. But when you just look how that playing game went, Nicholas Batum had 28 points. Jimmy Butler left in the final minutes. Tyler Hero had one of the more boneheaded plays that turned the ball over late, and they still only won by 1 point. And I feel like maybe the Sixers, after all is said and done, are much more of a play-in level team right now than like the 2 seed that many of us projected them to be when they get Embiid back. We'll see. I love that we already disagree. Let's pivot now to the matchup that the winner of Knicks Sixers will play. Another fascinating matchup, and another matchup, guys, where the biggest story of the matchup is an injury situation to a superstar player. We have the Bucks against the Pacers. The Pacers won the season series 4-1. They did play one of those in the in-season tournament. That's why there were 5 games. The Pacers averaged 129 points per game against the Bucks. The Bucks are favored in this pretty heavily. They're minus 225. The Pacers are plus 180. And I think the Bucks, to me, they have some Suns vibes from last year, where when you look at the top, you're like, hey, how can this not work? These are names I recognize. These are names that I know to be great. But then you start to look under the hood of the team, and you're like, there's not a ton of depth here. This coach that I know pretty well, not really doing a good job. Doc Rivers actually has a losing record with the Bucks, which is mind-boggling to me, considering how much talent they have. Dame Lillard, for having a good points per game output this year, is not having a vintage Lillard season. And I look at this Bucks team, guys, and there's a part of me that wonders, are they fool's gold? And are the Pacers the kind of team that is able to take advantage of that? The biggest story, though, I already talked about it, is it does not seem like Giannis is on track to play game 1 and maybe even game 2. Right now, the latest reports are he is going to miss the early portion of this series. So I laid it all out. What are your keys in this series, Stokes? And just any particular matchups you like, that the Giannis injury, how massive is it? Just what are your initial thoughts?
So I think that for the Bucks, if they can, I think normally you want to win both games at home, but if you're not going to have Giannis for both games at home, you just got to go into it thinking, okay, we need a split. I don't think it's likely that they'll win both games at home without Giannis, because Dame, for all he does offensively, like it's not going to be enough, because he's not a good defensive point guard, and the team itself is not a good defensive team. So when you're looking at it that way, they have to go out and split at home, and then once Giannis comes back, okay, maybe we'll get a split in Indiana, and then we come back for a three game set, or a 3-game series, essentially, with 2 of them at home. I don't think that if Giannis is unable to play more than 2 games, I'd have trouble picking them to win the series. But Indiana, they are just not a consistent squad in general. So they lose to all kinds of teams, and they can beat all kinds of teams as well. So they have a great offense, but they have holes in their defense as well. Tyrese Halliburton, I mean, he's been good pretty much all season, but we don't know how much he's still hampered by the injury that he's had to play through because of what he's wanted money-wise. So the Pacers themselves, they are a team that is very much up and down, and it's just a matter of who's going to be consistent for a matter of 4 games. And if you're going to tell me that Giannis is going to be able to play 5 of those 7 games, then I might believe in that.
What about you, Magic? What are some of the keys in this series for you?
To Stokes' point about Tyrese's injury, we're on first-name basis. He's averaging 17 and 9 since January 30th. That's a large portion of the season. We know what the deal is because we're NBA heads. For those who don't know, there is a games minimum, and if he is able to make an All NBA team by playing the minimum games, he's skill-wise he's there. and I think it's $50 million. Maybe it's 40, but what's $10 million between friends? So, he's gutting through this injury, and his numbers have clearly taken a dip. And as a result, the team's offense has dropped down. They haven't played the Bucks in 2 months. So, I'm going to take the Pacers.
Oh, okay.
I am very worried about this Giannis injury.
Mm-hmm.
Their second best player, I think we agree, is Dame. Okay. I think this might be his worst year of his career. Yeah. Outside of his rookie year, this might be the second worst year of his career. So if you don't have your best player, your second best player is having his worst season. He can't stop the other team from doing what they want to do. It just, I don't know. I'm worried about picking the Pacers, but I'm going to pick the Pacers. And then, if the Bucks do lose, whenever they lose, we all know it's not going to be Doc's fault. He went out there and he tried.
Literally everybody else's fault but Doc Rivers. You have to love it.
Well, he came in mid-season. He didn't ask for this.
Didn't have a lot of talent to work with.
Yeah, he just comes here, man. And
only two future Hall of Famers, probably. I mean, how can you work with? There's 3 other starters out there that are not going to go to the Hall of Fame. What's he supposed to do with that?
What's Malik Beasley going to do for him?
Not defense. That's for sure. All right, Stokes, we already got Magic's prediction. I'll kick it to you here, but I'm just going to throw a couple little stats out here. So Tyrese Halliburton, you mentioned how he's been struggling recently, Magic, and like you said, these games against the Pacers and the Bucks were very early in the season, but he averaged 27 and 11 against the Bucks in the regular season, and those were games, and I did mention they scored 129 points per game against the Bucks, where Giannis played, and he is by far their best defensive player. So that's not nothing to me. And I am concerned that even if he does come back, what kind of shape is he going to be? And we're talking about a calf injury here. So even when you're able to play, can you play through it? What version of yourself are you going to be? So Magic is on the Pacers upset. Where are you at, Stokes?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's a calf, as you mentioned, when it was Kevin Durant, it was a strained calf, and it's like, okay, well, I'm going to play through it, and then next thing you know, pop, and the Achilles is gone. So is that something that Giannis can mentally get past, or is it something that is likely to happen for him? I mean, it's truly impossible to know. But I think we know that Giannis is going to play through whatever he can or whatever he's able to in order to try and get his team to win. So if you're going to tell me Giannis is going to play 5 games, I'm going to take the Bucks. Just because I feel like they're going to have the best player on the court. And then, since you don't exactly know what level of Tyrese you have anymore, I think I'd still probably take Dame, especially in clutch moments. If the game is close, I would take those 2 players over them. So I'm going to take the Bucks to win the series. I think it's going to be 2-2 headed back to Milwaukee, and then that's when you're going to see Giannis hopefully take over for those last couple games.
Do you agree with that, Magic? Would you take right now Dame as the better player over Tyrese?
Tyrese, I believe, is injured. Dame, I don't know what his excuse is, so I'm going to give him the
feelings.
Career longevity. Sorry. Something Stokes mentioned earlier is that the Pacers are inconsistent and they lose to all kinds of teams, which is true. If we look at the standings, they are 2 games back of the Bucks. So, as inconsistent as they are, the Bucks without their best player.
Well, the Pacers are not great defensively, but I think there's some things about where they're weak that will benefit them, particularly if Giannis can't go. Indiana is the worst in the league at defending points in the paint. Well, where are those points in the paint going to come from if Giannis isn't playing? You would think that their offense would be going through Dame, and then you mentioned Beasley, some of the guys that can shoot, but the Pacers give up the lowest 3-point percentage or the lowest 3-point output in the entire NBA. And on the other side, I've questioned all along, even if Giannis is healthy, how the Bucks can survive in the playoffs with defensive liabilities in Dame and Beasley at guard. I just don't see how it's going to work. Maybe they can scheme it up. I'm riding with Magic on this one. I'm going to go Pacers in 5. And let me tell you why I'm taking 5. I know it's like, whoa, 5. The longer this series goes, the more it benefits the Bucks. Because I do anticipate that Giannis will be back at some point in time. And the more Giannis games we have, the more I like the Bucks. So I think the Pacers need to get in there, get out of there before Giannis is back and right. So for me to pick the Pacers, I need them to get this done early. I echo what Stokes said. I think it was Stokes about the 2 games early. Like, even if the Bucks get a split, that's a win for them. The Pacers got to be out for blood early if Giannis isn't on the floor. And I feel good about the Pacers' chances. And so, we already are disagreeing. We haven't swept anything yet. It's okay, folks. We still have the Celtics to talk about. So just hold tight. But
we're all taking the Heat, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, you saw last year, right?
Yep.
Own them. All right. Let's talk about the series in the East. Do I want to call this like the bowl game that has no national title implications for a football reference? No, I don't want to do that. The Cleveland Cavaliers and the Orlando Magic, they split the season series 2-2. The Cavs are pretty heavy favorites in this. They are minus 194 to win the series, and the Magic are plus 156. Guys, I have a personal issue right now. I really want to pick the Magic to win this series. They are much more likable than the Cavs to me. The Cavs have bad vibes, and I thought that they totally mismanaged the last week of the season when they rested all of their guys the last day of the season, tanked to the Charlotte Hornets, and cost themselves the ability to go win a game and get down in that bracket we just talked about, which, yes, that bracket does include potentially Giannis and Embiid, and a Pacers team we talked about that can be dangerous, and a Knicks team that's feisty. But you know who it doesn't include? It doesn't include the Celtics. But I think the Cavaliers were so short-sighted about this that they were obsessed with winning a playoff series and getting over that hump. I think I wrote this down. They haven't won a playoff series since 2018. I think that is their entire goal this season, is to win a playoff series. And if they go get smacked by the Celtics in the second round, they're going to hang that "we won a playoff series" banner in their arena, and they're going to be proud of themselves. Completely mismanagement. The goal should be to, I give Donovan Mitchell all kinds of credit. He said, he says success is making it to the conference finals, making it to the finals. Everything else is just part of the process. But I think they absolutely mismanaged this. They do have an easier matchup in round 1, but the path of least resistance ends after that. The Magic are the NBA's 4th youngest team. And, there's some stats about how they fared against some of the better defenses, which the Cavaliers are. The Magic were 5-10 against top 6 defenses last year per Action Network, 104 points per game. In the rest of their games, they were 42-25, 112 points per game. And they were bottom 3 in 3-point attempts and bottom 7 in 3-point percentage. So when you start looking at variables that can swing a series, that an underdog can just get hot, and what can balance it out to help an underdog win a series, I always look at, like, can this team get hot from the 3-point line? They don't take a lot of 3-pointers, and they're not very efficient when they do it. So as much as I would love to sit here and pound the table for the Magic, it seems like I'm just going to go ahead and get into my prediction now. I'm just going to do it. I can't do it. I think the Cavs win this. I think they win it fairly easily. Bad vibes around this team, though. I don't think that the Cavs are a dangerous team. I just think that they're better than the Magic. And I do worry about a team that's the 4th youngest in the NBA in their first ever playoff environment. And I do think that the Cavs defense is built to give this team a lot of trouble. I'm not sure where their offense is going to come from. The one thing I would say for the Magic is if Jalen Suggs can slow down Donovan Mitchell, and I don't need him to completely contain him, but if he can slow him down, I do think it's going to be trouble for the Cavs to get their points too. So maybe that's something that could help the Magic win this series. But Magic, I'm picking the Cavs to win this series in 6. How do you see this one going?
NBA TV, which means I get it on League Pass, I'm pretty sure. So very excited to see this terrible, terrible series. I think this is going to be one of those 90s series that's not so fun to remind us of the 90s. We got two good defenses. I really want to pick the Magic. I might do. I'm going to try to talk myself into it by the time I'm done. I think the Cavs need to be punished for their basketball cowardice of ducking the 2 seed, not even knowing who they could play. They were just scared of, maybe we get Philly, maybe we get Miami. They didn't even know who they could get. And this short-sightedness of we have to win a round just to lose in the second round, just to try to keep convince Donovan Mitchell to stay. He's already said that's not going to be enough. And also, no one stays in Cleveland. All right.
Even people from Cleveland leave Cleveland twice.
Yeah, exactly. So what are we doing? I don't see how Orlando can score enough, because all the issues that the Cavs have with their 4 best players not really fitting together as a foursome, they still have a good defense and a good enough offense, I think, to put up just enough points that Orlando just can't keep up with. I don't think they have enough offense. I can't talk myself into it. I'm going to go Cavs in 6.
How about you, Stokes?
Sweep. Although I'm going Cavs in 5. I think that the Cavs, they've got a couple of really good interior players on defense, and then on the perimeter they probably have the best player. So as you mentioned, if Jalen Suggs can slow Donovan Mitchell down, I don't think it's possible, because Spider can do essentially whatever he wants on the court. So my expectation is that he's going to average 20, 28, 30 points in the series, and the Cavs are going to kind of dismantle them essentially, because I don't think the Magic are ready. I like Paolo Banchero. They've got a lot of nice pieces, but I just don't think that they're ready for this particular moment. And I think the Cavs are going to be happy to win their series and then go out and get blasted by the Celtics.
Hang that banner. What do you guys think about Darius Garland? I came into this season thinking that he and Mitchell had a chance to be kind of a dynamic 1-2 punch. And in an East that coming into the year did not look overly deep, I thought they had a chance to be dangerous. Now, look, there were some injuries. Those guys didn't play as many games on the floor together as you would have liked. When I watch Darius Garland play, particularly this year, I am left wanting a lot more. I know he's flashy, but Magic, what do you think about Garland?
I think the Spurs should give a call to Cleveland so that Victor Wembanyama can play with a real guard. I don't love him. I think he's good, but I mean, good is good. He's not. I don't want to say Jalen Suggs, but I mean, you need a guy who can run your offense, and I think he can do that. And I think he had a bad break. I mean, he broke his jaw or something this year. That's tough.
Is it just Is it just a bad fit with Mitchell, you think?
Well, I think they were fine last year, right? So I think this was kind of I think if their 2 years together had swapped, like last year they were bad together, and it was like, well, we'll give it another shot. And then they had last year. This year, we feel a lot better about them as a duo. Like we saw it work, and now we've seen it not work. Somehow that makes it worse than if it didn't work, and then it does work now.
Hey, Bills fans, if you're still sticking around, we can relate to this. Where it starts off great and then it stops. I'm pointing at his penis. It starts off great and then it stops working, and then all of a sudden it's like, what happened? Anyway, Stokes, what do you think about Garland?
Coming out of college, the comparison that was most he was compared a lot to Steph Curry with the way his range was and how good of a shooter he was. And I mean, I think that I bought into that quite a bit, just because I love shooters, and I love watching guys like that play. But he hasn't done anything that to make anyone believe that he's anything close to a Steph clone. But I think he is a good enough player to still garner enough attention to run an offense. And if he got with a player that didn't have similar types of skill set as he does, like if he went to San Antonio, where he could be that point guard and just run the offense with the number one guy that isn't in his same type of class, that would be great. Or any other place where he would play with a big, that would be great for him. I don't know whether having him on a team with a guy like Spider is a good fit for them long term. But they're so locked into all the players that they have that the only way he's gonna get anything really is by going somewhere else.
How much do you guys buy into playoff experience? We talked about it with the Magic. Really, outside of Garland, there's not a ton on the Cavs. And then even thinking about the Pacers, who Magic and I both picked, they traded for Siakam midseason. He has like 50 plus games of experience, but they let Bruce Brown go, who was a real glue guy on that Nuggets team that won last year. And, Halliburton hasn't played in the playoffs. So how much does that tip your scales when you're thinking about how these series can go, Stokes?
I not so much early. I don't think. I don't think that it does a whole lot. I mean, you don't know what you know. You don't know what you don't know in these types of situations, and it's all going to come down. I think it comes down mostly to coaching and who's going to be able to make those adjustments. Because if you're going to follow what the coach says, hey, this is what we're doing this game, and we're going to make these adjustments. As long as you're following whatever it is. I think the biggest thing is how people handle the crowd, because sometimes you get into a situation where you either want to get your crowd hyped up, so you do something out of the norm, or you're trying to shut the other crowd up and you do something that you take a three where you probably shouldn't have, or you try and shut the building down one way or another, and then you end up letting the team back in, or you're shooting your team out of the game. But that's really the only time I think it comes into play. But if you've got enough guys around you that can keep the guys some sort of level. Like you mentioned with Indiana, like Pascal, like if he should be able to keep the younger players level. I don't know whether the Magic have those types of players, and of course, a couple of the other teams that we'll talk about, they don't necessarily have those guys that garner enough quote unquote respect to get the younger players back in check if they're drifting a little bit.
How about you, Magic?
I think it matters a real decent amount. I mean, we'll see later that this year will be kind of an exception year. I think it matters like a lot. If we go through like NBA playoff history, the teams that win are usually older. Not a team full of 32-year-olds. That's too old. But it's not usually these young up and coming teams like the Magic or the Thunder are the two like this year that I can think of. Spoiler alert, later when we get to the Thunder, I'm going to pick the Thunder. So it depends. To Stokes' point about coaching, usually the coaches that are with these younger, inexperienced teams are also younger, inexperienced coaches. So it's usually kind of a pairing. So is it that the coach doesn't really know how to adjust to playoff rotations such as, this is interesting. The Celtics last year, team full of experience, coach, no experience. They lost to Miami, a team with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and then really Kyle Lowry. Other than that, I think their rotation was pretty inexperienced last year. But they had those three guys and a coach who has multiple rings. So that experience mattered a lot more than just the players. So to Stokes' point, coaching also comes into it. It's not only the players. The Magic have Joe Ingles, I think, as their rotation guy with playoff experience. I like Joe Ingles. He should not be in a playoff rotation in 2024. So, like, for them, I think it matters. Cleveland got boat raced last year by the Knicks tape. So at least they have a year of like, oh man, this sucked. I think I know what to do the next time we get into this awful time. Hopefully we can go beat the Magic. So I think it is a case-by-case situation. But for the most part, I think it matters. Indiana, I don't know. That's really coming down to Giannis not being there and Dame having a terrible year. Pelicans are up 9 at the half.
Okay. And without Zion. So, hey, go Kings.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I think of the major sports when you think about football, basketball, if you want to include baseball. It feels like basketball at the professional level is the one that the sport changes the most in the playoffs. You already mentioned the rotations where you really shrink your bench. And for some of these young players that haven't played in the playoffs, if they are guys who are used to coming off the bench, their minutes could absolutely shrink. And it's about maximizing your minutes and not trying to do too much when your minutes go from like 15 a game to just 6 and just being out there and holding serve. And there's the whole aspect of in the regular season, you might play a team on a back-to-back, but you're really game planning to win that game, where the chess match of a series it's about problem solving. It's about game planning game to game, not showing all your cards early. And then the team has all the answers for what you want to do. And that's where you mentioned the coaching chess match comes in. where a team could come out with a great game plan game one, but if you don't have a counterpunch, if you don't have problem solving beyond that, you're probably going to lose the series. So it's fascinating to watch it all play out. And I think basketball is just, it's so interesting to see how these teams adjust as these series go on. And I thought Eric Spoelstra did a fantastic job last season to get the Heat to the finals and even to steal a game from the Nuggets. Speaking of Eric Spoelstra, guys, his Heat made it out of the play-in tournament. They defeated the Chicago Bulls, and their reward is a date with the Boston Celtics, who they sent home in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. But much like the Bucks and the Sixers, the story of this team right now is their best player is very much in doubt. And unlike the Bucks and the Sixers, where these guys are at least somewhat optimistic that they're going to play, and in Embiid's case, he's going to play. What kind of conditions is he in? In Giannis's case, he may miss a couple games. It doesn't sound like Jimmy Butler is going to be back anytime soon. Sprained MCL, could be out for multiple weeks. And when you start looking at this matchup where Boston is, one of the best offensive teams in the sport, one of the best defensive teams in the sport, they shoot as a team 40% from 3-point at home. And what a team would have to do at full health to beat them. What stokes about this matchup? Is there anything from a Heat standpoint that gives you optimism, hope, anything beyond good luck Heat?
The fact that they could be in their head, the fact that the Celtics might think that they have to do a little bit too much, the fact that they could say, or they could think to themselves, okay, we gotta make sure that they're dead if we're gonna win this series, that type of thing. Nothing as far as like X's and O's would make you think that the Heat are gonna beat the Celtics. It's only gonna be something along the lines of, well, that they just got in their way yet again, because that's just what they do. Even last year, the Celtics, they won three in a row after losing three in a row. So like they got down 3 in a row and 3-0, and then they came back and pushed it to a game 7, even though they lost that game. But it's like they can turn it on and win and beat this team when they not all the time, but they can. So there's nothing about anything as far as matchups that would make me think that the Celtics would lose this series. And if they did go out and lose this series, it would just be a matter of, well, the Spoelstra did something special yet again against this team, and that's just it. The difference in coaching skill set, I think that is the only thing that is going to make the difference.
Last year, when the Heat beat Boston, it was Eric Spoelstra coaching, but I think it was also kind of an anomaly with the offensive output from the Heat. The Heat last year were a 35% free or 3-point shooting team, and in that series, they shot 43.4%, which is an obscene increase in percentage. It carried them throughout the playoffs. This happened in multiple rounds. They got very hot. Magic, without Jimmy Butler, is there a path to Miami making this series even interesting?
Tyler Hero gets hurt.
Addition by subtraction?
Just kidding. Kind of. No. There's no. No. Maybe this gets to 5. But like Tyler Hero is now their best offensive player, and he's not that guy. So he's just not that guy. I don't have anything for this without Jimmy.
Yeah, it's tough. I love Bam. I think he showed a lot last year against the Nuggets in the playoffs. I think he put himself in that conversation of, not the elite, but in that next tier. But, it's just hard to envision beating a team like the Celtics where the best player on your team is a big man that's not really, gonna take over the game. And Tyler Hero could get hot, I suppose. Some of these other guys that they're running out there, Caleb Martin, Duncan Robinson, could get hot. Sure, I mean, it's basketball, it's the NBA, but to think that it's going to sustain itself over a 7-game series, I think is unrealistic. I'm feeling a sweep in this one, guys. I think this is actually the best case scenario matchup for the Celtics. The Celtics are a team that They have had the talent to win a championship for the last several years, and for a variety of reasons, it hasn't worked out. And I think getting this monkey off their back of beating the Heat in whatever form they're in is kind of a way to kickstart their playoff run. And maybe it tells them, hey, this is our year. So I'm taking the Celtics. I'm taking the Celtics in a sweep. I don't think either game will be particularly competitive. Boston did win the season series for what it's worth, 3-0. Stokes, what's your prediction on this one?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, I think this will be a great way to exercise the demons and get that type of that monkey off their back so early, and then it'll allow them to stroll through the rest of the East. Yeah, I mean, I can see a gentleman sweep here, just because Spoelstra's going to get them one. Like that's just the way I feel about it. He's going to get them one game just because of something crazy that he's going to do. Maybe he'll try a 3-2 zone or a 1-3-1 zone, or he's going to try to double Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and leave everyone else open. He's going to do something crazy, something special that's going to get them one game, and then the rest of they'll just get boat raced.
I'm going to double Tatum. I'm going to double Brown. I'm going to double Porzingis. Oh, shit, I'm out of guys.
Exactly.
Can I play 7 guys, please? All right, Magic, what's your prediction?
I'll take Celtics in 4.
Yeah.
I just can't see how they win a game. I mean, I'm sure that they're probably going to, because it just seems so far-fetched.
The gentleman's sweep is interesting because that's the lose first 3, and then you get one at home before you go back and let them win it on their home court. But what I saw from the Miami fans tonight, I don't expect that game 4 where they're down 3-0 to be a raucous Miami crowd. I would think it'd be like 10,000 fans and maybe 20,000 Boston fans coming to dance on their grave. So I don't know. I don't know if this sets up environment-wise for the gentleman sweep. I'm with you, though. Spoelstra is excellent. I have all the respect in the world with him, but he is severely outgunned in this, particularly without Jimmy Butler. All right, guys, we are about done with the East, but one question for both of you. If the Celtics are not going to make it to the NBA Finals, what team in the East do you think is most equipped to stop them? And I'll start with you, Magic.
Philly.
What about you, Stokes?
I have to agree.
Yeah.
Philadelphia.
I think so too. And obviously it comes with the caveat that Embiid is fully healthy. If Giannis is fully healthy and he comes back and looks like the Giannis we expect, I think they are a terrible matchup. I mean, I think the Celtics are a terrible matchup for them. Well, I know, hot take by me, the Celtics are a bad matchup for somebody, but the way they shoot threes and the way that the Bucks absolutely struggle defensively, I don't see it. I guess when you have Giannis, when you have Dame, there's the potential those guys could take games over. But I'm with you. I think Embiid coming back, being in MVP form, is really the only shot the East has, unless Stokes, your Knicks, can just muck it up so much, kill the clock, and just make Boston very uncomfortable. Because when you're a team that's used to scoring 120 points a night, and all of a sudden it's the middle of the fourth quarter and you've got 80, it can do something with your brain because the game has just moved so slow. You might be winning and you have 80, but still it's like, why do we only have 80? It's not us, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm rooting for everybody playing Boston, by the way. Every single series, even the Cavs, who I just absolutely cannot stand, I'll be rooting for them. I don't see it.
They out-tanked the Hornets.
That's impressive.
They played 4 centers and a small forward. I want the Cavs to do so badly.
All right, let's flip it over to the West. And we will start with, okay, so just so everybody knows, at the time we're recording this, the Kings and the Pelicans are in progress. So we don't know who is going to play Oklahoma City, but we will certainly talk about Oklahoma City down the line. We'll save that for last, just on the off chance that game is good enough that we feel good about calling it. Let's start with a rematch of the Western Conference Finals from last year, guys. The Denver Nuggets, the 2 seed, take on the LA Lakers, the team that won the play-in game against the Pelicans. Now, the story of this matchup is the Nuggets swept the season series. They swept the Lakers out of the playoffs last year. The Nuggets have won 8 in a row. As somebody who has watched start to finish every single one of those games, I can tell you these were not comfortable wins, any of them. And I know it's like, okay, great. But I'm telling you, the average margin of victory in these were, I know I wrote this down, but it's less than 10 points, the average margin of victory. And in the playoffs last year, it was like 8 points per game. I don't know why I don't have it in my notes here, but really what you saw, the difference between the two teams were the clutch minutes, where the game would be close down the stretch. And then the Nuggets get their starting 5 on the court, who they've been together for multiple years now. They're totally in sync with each other. Joker and Murray run that 2-man game. Nobody can really stop it. And they do what they have to do to win the game. But I look at this matchup for the Nuggets. I don't necessarily look at this and think that it's a cakewalk, even though they've won 8 in a row. I am concerned about the Nuggets bench. And I know, Stokes, you're like the first one to tell me that, in the playoffs, you're kind of going to trim your bench down. So if your bench is a problem in the regular season, just get rid of the 2 or 3 guys that are holding you back. And the Nuggets are going to do some things where, in the regular season, they're playing Zeke Naji and DeAndre Jordan at backup center. And it's 100% going to be Aaron Gordon playing the backup center minutes. They are going to stagger Murray and Joker throughout the game, so those non-Joker minutes aren't as just like hold your breath. But when you look at what the Nuggets lost this offseason in Bruce Brown and Jeff Green, they lost some glue guys, but also in Bruce Brown, they lost somebody that can come in and score off the bench. And right now, I'm not convinced the Nuggets have that. Christian Brown had a very improved season from 3, but I'm not convinced he's a guy that's going to be a 3-and-D guy in the playoffs. I think he's still much more of a high effort, very good defensive guy. And then Peyton Swatson, as I like to call him, is going to get his on defense, but he also kind of teeter-totters on over-aggression, and you wonder how that's going to play in a series against the Lakers, who draw the most fouls in the entire sport. And the Jeff Green loss is if Aaron Gordon gets into foul trouble, because he's going to be the only one that's capable of stopping or checking LeBron. Jeff Green not being there means that Peyton Watson's going to have to be the next one up if Aaron Gordon gets into foul trouble. There's a lot of reasons to think that this could be more challenging for the Nuggets than the 8 games in a row would suggest. But where I fall on these Nuggets are Jamal Murray, who is their second best player, as I'm talking very slowly to find these stats. Okay, Jamal Murray missed 23 games, and the Nuggets still tied the franchise record with 57 wins and tied the Oklahoma City Thunder for the most wins in the West. They are still an excellent basketball team. They are 21-6 since the All-Star break, and baked into those 6 losses were a miraculous shot by Kyrie Irving, a miraculous shot by Kevin Durant at the buzzer, and then a miraculous finish where Joker misses a bunny against San Antonio, and they get a basket in transition to break their heart and knock them out of the 1 seed. So they only lost 6 games, and 3 of them were some of the wildest, like top 10 Sports Center moments you would see. I just said a lot. I think this Lakers team is better than last year. I also think they're more diverse than last year. I think they have a better 3-point shooting game than last year. Stokes, I'll start with you. I know a lot of people are like, oh, the Nuggets are going to dominate them, and I didn't even give the spread. Nuggets are minus 400. That seems a lot. The Lakers are plus 315. Where do you fall on this? What kind of a shot do you give the Lakers? And just, any thoughts you might have, like either side? What are your thoughts on this series?
I think the value bet is with the Lakers, just because you think that the Lakers have a lot of different ways that they could potentially win a game, whether it's a D'Angelo Russell game, whether it's Austin Reeves, whether one of those 2 guys are the guy that isn't LeBron or AD that ends up being a big impact in the game. You would think that they have more types of ways to win a game in that regard, but with the Nuggets, they're just consistently giving people work. Like they're just consistently, it's just Jokic. There's nothing you can do with him when he's down on the block. He's gonna back you down. You're gonna be under the basket, and he's gonna flail his arms around, and the ball's gonna go into the basket, and you're gonna be like, ugh, wow. Like, is there anything you can do with what he does with the basketball? The Nuggets, they're just like the boring team that's always that they're just great. Like they're boring and they're great, and you don't really want that to continue to win, but they're still great. So that's just the value pick is the Lakers. I don't think they're going to win, but I just wouldn't want to put a minus 400 down on the Nuggets to win the series.
You mentioned D'Angelo Russell. He's my X factor in this series. Last season in the playoffs, they were able to essentially play him off the floor, but it was Bruce Brown, who is no longer a Nugget, who really stole his soul in that series and made him go to the bench because he was such a defensive liability. But Magic, we've seen D'Angelo Russell become quite the weapon offensively for the Lakers. And as long as he can stay in the game and not become a complete liability on the defensive end, I do think that makes the Lakers much more diverse on the offensive side. What do you think about the player that D'Angelo Russell has evolved into, and can he be the X factor for the Lakers here?
What do I think about D'Angelo Russell? I don't like D'Angelo Russell, so everything after this might be jaded a little. I have the Nuggets in 5. That is out of respect for LeBron in year 27 million. They're 8-0 in their last 8. They can't stop the Nuggets. Their clutch numbers are better than theirs because the Nuggets have the best clutch offense in the league. It's not some fluke thing that it's just a bad matchup for the Lakers. No, this is just what Denver does. The sun comes up, the sun goes down. This is what the Nuggets do. So I think that, anytime they need a bucket, D'Angelo Russell's out on the floor. Hey, D'Lo, come get in the action. I don't care who your guard. Just get over here. Figure it out. The other 4 people on defense work around this massive glaring weakness. I think it's not a good matchup for the Lakers. I pulled some stats. The Lakers have been hot. They are up to an average offensive rating for the season. They're 16th. Defensive rating, they're also 16th. The Nuggets are 5th in offense, 8th in defense. That is with a worst bench in the league, pulling down those numbers. I think we want this to be close because it's LeBron, but this is a 2-7 for a reason. And we need to stop disrespecting the defending champions.
Music to my ears. Stokes, I just had a point I was going to make, and Magic just lost me in all of his great stats that I like. Oh, you put me on to the JJ Redick LeBron podcast, and boy, is that good. Yes. They broke down the Nuggets offense, which for me was just, get me some of that. And they talked about how challenging the starting 5 is because you have the 2-man game with Joker and Murray. And then when Joker has the ball in his hands, he is the best at mapping the court in the entire sport. So then you have your 2 spacers in KCP and MPJ. And then you have probably the best dunker in the sport in Aaron Gordon. And quietly, the Jamal Murray injury has gotten Joker and Aaron Gordon to the point where they're automatic on the alley-oop now. And it just puts your defense in such a bind. You have to help on Gordon. And if you do help on Gordon, you're leaving KCP or Michael Porter Jr. wide open. And oh, by the way, he can always find Jamal Murray back in the 2-man game. And it just puts you in such a conundrum. So I just wanted to give you credit for that podcast. But I know you have more respect for the Lakers than Magic does. So you said that the value play is the Lakers. What has to happen for the Lakers to win this series? I think the Lakers can keep it interesting. I think the Lakers are very live for game 1, because I think, unlike what teams try to do in a series where it's like, we're going to show you what we got, but we're going to keep some things in the bag. I think the Lakers are going to be in an empty the bag mode game 1 just to get that win, because if they would come out and they lose game 1, and God forbid for their sake, it's a blowout, it has this potential to snowball. If not now, win, because this team's won 8 games against you, and now we just lost game 1. I don't think the Lakers can afford to keep anything in the bag. I think they're going to have to empty it, show their bag of tricks, and try to get that first win just to take that monkey off their back and prove to themselves, kind of like Rocky against Drago, like he's a human, he can bleed. The Lakers have beaten the Nuggets in the playoffs. I mean, LeBron and AD sent the Nuggets home very easily in the bubble. So it's not like they have to fear this team. Stokes, what about the AD matchup? Would you put AD on Joker, or would you think that AD's learned his lesson from last year? Because it's not just about the fact that Joker is going to get his against pretty much anybody, but if you put AD on Joker, you're committing to taking AD away from the paint out to the 3-point line where he is not at his best. What do you think defensively? You think we're going to see more Rui on Joker, where AD is just kind of playing center field back there? What would you do defensively here?
I mean, I think that I would be more likely to put Rui on Joker and just have AD to say, hey, if he backs him down, you got to hedge a little bit and play under the basket a little bit more. And if he shoots it out or he passes out for a 3, I don't know who they would put him on. Besides that, whether it's Aaron Gordon or whatever, let Aaron Gordon shoot his 3 or off the wing. So that'd probably be what I would do, because I wouldn't want AD to waste like so much energy trying to defend Joker, because like he's gonna wear on whoever it is that's gonna be on him. So I would just and you think that every possession where he doesn't back down Rui is a win, but I something I saw when the Nuggets played the Celtics, like anytime Porzingis was on Jokic, he was okay. Well, let me go down to the block. Let me put Porzingis under the basket and just lay it up over him. Like, and I think that they understand that they would do that a million times if Rui's on them. And it's just a matter of how they want to defend it after that. But as far as I wouldn't want to waste so much of AD's energy trying to defend Jokic. I'd rather him be a help defender, and you deal with whatever comes after that.
All right. So what is your prediction for this series, Stokes?
Well, I'm not gonna be crazy. Like like I said, if I was betting, the value would be taking the Lakers just because you want to see it. But the only way that I think they'll have a chance is you have a vintage LeBron series where he's getting everybody in foul trouble. So if Aaron Gordon has multiple games where he's got 3, 4, 5 fouls, that's where I think you'll see a really good chance for the Lakers, because if he isn't able to contain LeBron, then everything else is going to open up for the team, because then the Nuggets have to do something different to try to defend LeBron, and then he's got enough players around him that you think they're gonna be able to hit shots, they're going to be able to do energy type stuff that are going to keep them alive in the series. But I'm going to pick the Nuggets just because I'm not crazy.
How many games?
6 games. 6 games.
I'm going to go 6 as well. I think the Lakers are very live in game 1. If they lose game 1, I could see it being a sweep. I really could. If they lose game 1, I'd want to trim it down to 5. But I think that they're very dangerous on Saturday against the Nuggets. We shall see. But who the Nuggets and Lakers will be playing in the second round, the winner of that, is a fascinating matchup. And earlier I said that the Knicks Sixers was my favorite matchup of round 1, but if it's not Knicks Sixers, it is absolutely the Timberwolves and Suns. And when you look at this matchup, the regular season, well, let's start with the odds. Timberwolves are -102. The Suns are -120. How did we get here? The Timberwolves had a chance the last game of the regular season to win and get the 1 seed, because of it would have been a 3-way tie with the Nuggets and the Thunder and the Wolves. The Wolves would have they would have gotten the 2 seed, so they would be playing the Lakers, and the Nuggets be playing the Suns. They had to beat the Suns, and it did not go well. They got blown out. In fact, every time they played the Suns this regular season, guys, they lost, and it did not go well. They got blown out. They lost every game by double digits. And it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, there were free throws late. No, they were down at halftime every game by double digits. And I think it's one of those deals when I look at this matchup, I feel like I'm like casual NBA fan would come in here and pick the Suns to win, because it's like, oh, I know Devin Booker. I know Kevin Durant. I know Beal. Like, obviously the Suns are going to beat this team. Who else do the T-Wolves even have besides Edwards? Is Rudy Gobert really going to scare me? Like, if you didn't watch the season, you might think that. So it's annoying to me that I am leaning this way. But I can't deny the fact that matchup-wise, the Suns seem to just not fear at all what the Wolves do best, which is play lights out defense. The Wolves force you into contested shots. Well, guess what? The Suns have 3 of the best contested shot shooters in the entire sport. They don't care. They will shoot contested shots all day long. They do not mind. And they will shoot over your defense. They are perfectly built to beat the Wolves. I am not sure what the Wolves counterpunch can be, because I'm not sure that they have the capability to go out there and say, well, we're going to turn ourselves into a 3-point shooting team. Are they going to change their defensive scheme? I don't know why you would. You had the best defense in the sport. You're really going to change it? Playoff series game 1. I feel awful for Wolves fans because they had a fantastic season. They should have been the 1 or the 2 seed. If not for, I shouldn't say should have. They lost to the Nuggets and the Suns the last week of the season. Those are 2 very good teams, but they were like within an eyelash of being the 1 and the 2 seed. And instead, they play a team that I just think matches up with them as well as anybody in the sport. And I think that if the Wolves were to go on and play the Nuggets, it would be a very scary matchup for the Nuggets. But unfortunately for the Wolves, they run into a team that just absolutely does not fear what they do well. Magic, what are your initial thoughts about this matchup between the Wolves and the Suns?
The Suns, we've been concerned about all season. The guys, they don't fit. They don't have a point guard. Their fourth quarter offense is historically terrible. They won 49 games. As bad as their season went, they still won 49 games because these guys are just that good. So when they do play, we've got an issue. What? I think this is going to be an intriguing series, or it's going to be just kind of a repeat of the regular season. The defense in Minnesota is so good. I want to believe in it. They take away what you're supposed to take away. It's not their fault the Suns are stupid and take these mid-rangers that are inefficient, except for these 3 guys because they go in so much. I mean, I don't know. What is Mike Conley going to do? Is he putting fear into the Suns defense? Is Jaden McDaniels? Well, I mean, defensively, he probably is kind of worrisome, but it's like, I mean, they can deal with Jaden McDaniels. They can just avoid Rudy Gobert. Towns is better on defense, but like he's still not a good defender. So it's just like this team that's built this 82-game profile on we're tough defensively. We have a real point guard and Ant Edwards as our go-to guy. Towns is a great second option, a big who can stretch the floor. Come on, we should be good. And they're right. They should be. I think this is just a really bad matchup.
I feel like the Towns injury down the stretch was like the best thing that happened to Anthony Edwards' career. It felt like a switch went on in his brain where he went from facilitator, very good player to, oh, now I have to beat double teams for us to score. I'm going to go do it. And it's like he became an unstoppable force down the stretch. It was beautiful to see. I love watching Anthony Edwards play. He's must-see TV every time he's on TV for me. You mentioned Jaden McDaniels. There's a joke about how Anthony Edwards said one time, they have Kevin Durant, but we have Jaden McDaniels. Like, okay, let's not play that back before the series starts. I would not put Jaden McDaniels on Kevin Durant. I think Jaden McDaniels is a fantastic defender when he has the athletic advantage. I don't think there is a defensive player in the sport that is capable of shutting down Kevin Durant. I think you're kind of at the mercy of, is his shot going to fall or not? I would put Jaden McDaniels on Booker, and I would just help on Durant or just live with the results of Durant's shot, because if you do that, you're at least not wasting your best defensive player who's just going to do what everybody else is going to do when they guard Durant and just watch his shot and see if it goes in or not. Stokes, Magic laid out a lot. He has some of the same concerns I do. What about you?
Yeah, I wouldn't put a good defender on Durant. Not that you put a terrible defender on him, but don't put a good one on, because as you said, no one's going to really affect his shot. He's tall enough and he's long enough that no one's really going to get in the way and defend his shot. So just let some guy that is not a plus defender go and defend him, and you just help off that. So that's definitely astute there. I that's something that I would do. I mean, it's just one of those situations where I think that, for the Suns and Suns fans, they're like, just let's get in the playoffs and everything's going to work out how it's supposed to. And now we're in that situation where they're in the playoffs, and now it's, hey, now we're going to take over. Durant's going to be Durant, Booker's going to be Booker, and whatever Bill gives us, then that's great. Because they have a team that is built well enough at the top that is going to be a threat in the playoffs. So I think that we are living in that at this point. And I'm going to take the Suns to win this series. And it is not a slight at all to the T-Wolves. It's just a matter of, I feel like the Suns, they just have the better, more cohesive team, because I think eventually they're not going to be able to play Rudy and Cat at the same time against this team. Like if they're playing Durant at the 4, who is Cat going to be on? Who is he going to have to defend? Because you assume that Gobert is going to be on Nurkic, so and they're going to cancel each other out. So if you're not going to put Cat on Durant, he's going to be on who? So that's where I'd be worried. And historically, Gobert gets played off the court in the playoffs, and I don't know whether this is going to be any different.
And Stokes, I'm gathering that a big thing for you in playoff basketball is who has the best player in the series, who has the 2 best players in the series. So I'm going to ask you both. Who are the 2 best players in this series? Start with you, Stokes.
Kevin Durant, and I'm going to say Anthony Edwards, based on what's happened this year. He's been phenomenal, and he's so good. So I Kevin Durant and then Anthony Edwards for me.
How about you, Magic?
Booker and Durant.
Same. I'm gonna go Durant and Booker. I just I want to see Edwards do it in the playoffs. Booker I saw blow up multiple times last year in the playoffs. He's got a good playoff resume, and man, when he's firing, it's tough to watch. They have 2 guys who can just get hot, and it's such a helpless feeling. Okay, so you guys are both picking the Suns. Magic, did you give your prediction? It sounded like you're picking the Suns.
Suns in 6.
And Stokes, did you give a game?
I'm gonna go Suns in 6 as well.
I'll go Suns also. I don't want to go 7. I'm gonna go Suns in 5. Because I'm not sure that the Timberwolves have the right tricks up their sleeve to solve what the Suns can do. And the Timberwolves are also in a tricky spot where they were 1 win shy of the most wins in the West. So they probably don't feel like they should go into this with an underdog mentality like the Heat did last year, where it's like, hey, let's change who we are. Let's start jacking up threes. Let's go small. Like let's bring in Monty Morris off the bench. Let's throw up some threes with Conley and Towns. We can do this. It's not who we are, but we can do it for a series. Let's counterpunch. I don't think that's in their DNA. I think they're going to try to be who they are, and I don't think who they are is good enough to beat this version of the Suns. Now, look, the Suns certainly have the ability to implode, and I would like to see this for T-Wolves fans because their team has been excellent this regular season, but I think they just got a really, really, really tough draw. The toughest series for me to predict is the next one we're going to talk about, Clippers and Mavs. Clippers right now are slight favorites, minus 102. I pulled this 2 days ago. I feel like the Mavs might even be a little bit. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm reading this wrong. Mavericks are slight favorites, minus 120. Clippers are minus 102. The Clippers won the season series 2-1, but that's largely irrelevant because they played these games before the trade deadline moves where the Mavs brought in PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, which really shored up their defense. The big story here, much like some of the other series in the East, is the Kawhi Leonard potential injury. He had inflammation in his knee that he had ACL surgery on back in 2021. It sounds like he's going to try to play through it, but how effective can he be? Only time will tell. This to me, I feel like, if to borrow a wrestling term, the heels in this one are the Clippers. And I feel like a lot of people are rooting for the Mavs because the Mavs have been sent home now twice by the Clippers. Luka's a pretty likable guy. Kyrie, Luka's a likable guy. Post-trade deadline, the Mavs, though, They really turned it up on defense. They're 7th in the NBA in defensive rating, 7th in defensive rebounding percentage. And the Mavs are one of those teams. They don't have to be locked down defense. They just need their defense to complement their excellent offense. But on the other side of the coin, I pulled some stats today that I thought were interesting. Paul George, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and Kawhi Leonard. They all have played the most games this season than they have in a long time. Paul George, most games this season since 2018. Westbrook since 2021. Harden since 2018. And Kawhi since 2016. But for 3 of them, it was the lowest minutes per game. And I'm thinking that the trade-off is because they have such depth with the 4 of them, that the pressure has not been on them in the regular season to play extended minutes, to play 35 minutes a night. You saw Russell Westbrook down to his lowest minutes per game since he was in Oklahoma City. So these guys that are veterans in the sport that you wonder about tired legs, that should not be an issue, Kawhi Leonard aside with whatever's going on with his inflammation. So these could be some fresh-legged Clippers here. I'm having a hard time with this one. Magic, how do you see this series? What are your X factors?
X factors. I think this is the series of round 1 in the West for sure. I mean, it's part 3. Usually in these sequels, someone has to win. Otherwise, it's not really a rivalry. It's just Luka being great and the Clippers winning. So I'm hoping that he'll continue to be great and they somehow get a win. I think I'm worried about the Kawhi injury because you always have to be worried about a Kawhi injury because he had a torn ACL and he was doubtful two seasons ago, I think it was. And then it comes out, he's gonna hope he's back for the start of the season because turns out he tore his ACL. Sorry, guys. So is it inflammation? Is it something really flaring up that he's actually not going to be able to play? That would be terrible because he's so good. Mm-hmm. I think the Kawhi Kyrie Luka pairing versus the Kawhi Paul George pairing is, I don't think it's an expert. I think it's just going to be stars versus stars because James Harden is not a star anymore. Russell Westbrook is finally in the right role where he barely touches the ball. A
hustle bench guy.
Yeah, there you go. 11, 5, and 5. That's a good line. The change that the Mavs went through at the trade deadline completely changed them. They're now a championship level team, and kind of in the same time frame, the Clippers have been kind of I think in their last 29, they're 15 and 14. So they had that hot stretch with Harden in the middle of the season, and then since then they've been a 500 team. And I think it's going to be a good series.
How about you, Stokes? Any initial thoughts?
I think this series is going to go 7. I think you're going to be in a situation where this is going to go 2-1, and then the team that's down 2-1 is going to win 2, and it's going to be 3-2, and then it's going to go down to the 7. I think this is going to be a series with a lot of ups and downs, and you're going to think that one team has the upper hand, and the other team is just going to come back, the next game or next couple games, and light it up a little bit. So I think this is going to be a wonderful series. You're going to have lots of moments where Paul George is taking over, where you have Luka taking over, Kyrie. It's going to be, I think, if there was only one series to watch in this in this round, this would be the one. If barring fandom, obviously fans of the Nuggets and the Cavs and all those teams and the Knicks, they're going to want to watch them. But if there was one series that I could watch, this would be the one because this is going to be full of a lot of excitement.
All right, let's get to predictions. I'll start with you, Magic. How do you see it going?
I want Luka to win, so I'm picking the Mavs. In 7. I agree with everything Stokes just said.
Stokes?
Well, I think that the Clippers are going to win this one. I just think that'll be how it's going to go. But yeah, 7. It'll be really really cool to see how it goes in the 7th game. But then at the same time, I think about how well Kyrie plays and how if he has to be defended by either Russ or James Harden, like Kyrie is going to cook either one of those guys. So then how are they going to deal with Luka? Are they going to try and put Kawhi or Paul George on him? Because if they do a lot of switching, it's just a little switch, and then he's on Zubac or something like that. So like it's going to be a lot of cool things that you're going to see in this series. But I think the Clippers are going to win it.
So there's a lot of similarities between these two teams. Now, look, the Clippers don't have the success the Chiefs do as far as collecting Super Bowls, but it's kind of like, if not now, when. This team has sent them home twice, the Bills, Chiefs, and it's kind of all setting up this year where you look at maybe a potential Kawhi injury, and Luka finally has Kyrie Irving with him, running with him in the playoffs. If not now, when. They made some big moves at the trade deadline. I'm rooting for the Mavs. I'm picking the Clippers. And to me, it comes down to one mismatch we have not talked about yet. I think there is a massive coaching mismatch in this series. I think Lou has the ability over a 7-game series to really outcoach Jason Kidd. And I think if it comes down to it and you're talking about solving problems in game 5, 6, or 7, I'm going to give the edge to the Clippers there. I'm not as confident in Jason Kidd's ability to adjust over the course of a series. I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong. But sitting here right now, I am going to take the Clippers. Is that a crazy thought, though, to think that it's a coaching mismatch?
No, Jason Kidd is not.
Okay.
It is not a crazy thought at all, sir.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So that's where I'm at with this one.
Who are the two best players in this series?
Ooh. You want me to
go? Let's say.
I think
because I assume we're going to pick Luka and Kawhi.
I was going to say, if Kawhi is healthy, this is the easiest question we've had all night.
But let's say Kawhi is best player in the series who we think is going to play in game 1.
I might still pick Kawhi.
No, we don't think he's going to play.
Kyrie has been fantastic down the stretch, and it feels like he is embracing this role like we haven't seen him do in several years, and he is very happy to be the number 2. And Kyrie's kind of an odd guy, but it feels like whatever they're doing in Dallas, he is 100% bought in. And Kyrie as your number 2, if he's bought in, is scary. So he's close to me, but Kawhi, his playoff numbers are just insane. So if he's remotely close to healthy, to me, it's Kawhi and Luka.
Yeah, I echo those sentiments. Obviously, Luka's easy best player on the court type of thing, but there's still playoff P. You never know. He can show up. Playoff
first
P.
time.
Yeah. First time for everything.
Yes.
First time for everything. All right, I'm going to take a moment now to Google the score of the Kings.
83-74 to start the 4th.
All right, so we have no idea who's going to win that game. Who's winning that right now?
The Pels are up 9, which is what they were up going into halftime. So they just ran around for 12 minutes and really changed nothing.
Let's have an Oklahoma City Thunder conversation, because I don't necessarily think that who they play in the first round is really going to move the needle too much. I'll just tell you, I would not pick them to lose to either one of these teams. Why do you guys think that people are having such a hard time buying into the Thunder? Is it because they're not one of those classic teams like the Celtics or the Lakers, or they don't have what you would call like established stars that we're used to seeing for the last 10 years? Although I think SGA has a very valid argument of being the best player in the entire sport this year. And I think Chet Holmgren is on his way to, multiple all-star trips as his career winds down, although there's a lot of good bigs in the sport right now. So I look at it and I'm like, is it the youth? What is it, Stokes, about this Thunder team that really makes it hard for people to buy in?
It's most definitely the youth. It's that you don't usually see a team win a championship and not have to go through some type of heartbreak, some type of loss. Teams don't usually go from hey, we were bad and now we're champions. That's just not what happens in the NBA. even with the Warriors, even with LeBron, any type of champion that you see, it's not something that you really encounter as a team just going from real bad to championship level. So that's his history is the biggest thing that is against them. But like if you look at the way they play, they're so good. And then you've got, as you said, SGA, like the way he plays, he is efficient. And if he gets to the line, he's 80-90% at the line. So you can't really get too close to him. And he plays in a similar way that Jalen Brunson plays, where it looks slow, but then he's fast. All of a sudden he speeds you up, and then he'll get you up in the air. He'll get you to foul him, or he's just a killer from mid range. So, and then you have the players around them that are all good. As Chet Holmgren, as you mentioned, Jay Will, they've got a lot of good pieces and a lot of young pieces that make it understandable why they're the number one seed. But I think that history is definitely against them.
What do you think, Magic?
How do you pronounce their coach's last name? See? We don't even know who their coach is. Or Daignault. There's a T on the end there. They're not glamorous. They're not exciting. Shea kills you with his mid range and his footwork, and that's not stuff that gets on the TikTok and the Instagram reels and such. He I think scored 30 something in like 55 games, but I don't think he ever scored he never scored 50. I don't know if he got to 40. So he's like, set your metronome. He's gonna get to his 30. There'll be some oh man, look how skilled this guy is, but it's not like he's not dunking on anybody. He's not blowing by anybody. They're not exciting. Their most exciting player, their biggest highlight is Chet getting stuff blocked by Victor Wembanyama when he was trying to win a game. Their biggest highlight is someone else's highlight, and I don't know what it is. They're not flashy, by design. They're in Oklahoma City. They don't want the glitz and the glamour. They want I don't know what they have there, tumbleweed. But to Stokes' point, no one goes from terrible to great this quickly. The last two seasons, I was looking it up. They won 24 games 2 seasons ago. Last year they won 40. This year they won 57. So in over 2 years, they've gone from a 24 win team to a 57 win team. That's plus 15 wins a year. That's remarkable. These people need to be respected for what they're doing. But regardless of who wins this game, I have OKC in 5. So there's their first round.
Yeah, what a great draw to get the Pelicans without Zion, assuming that the Pelicans can hold on here. That's no offense to CJ McCollum, but I don't know that the Pelicans are in any kind of form to really push this team. I don't know. I could be wrong. The Pelicans have some dudes still, I guess. And if the youth really is a factor, but boy, wouldn't that be a disappointing season to be the 1 seed and then lose to the Pelicans without Zion? Any final thoughts, guys? Anything we've talked about tonight? I enjoyed this enough that I think we should do it again before the second round. What do you all say?
Oh yeah, I'm down for that.
All right, let's do it. If the Nuggets lose, I will never watch basketball again. I'm just kidding. I will say it was nice to have a Nuggets-Lakers conversation that didn't evolve into, does LeBron need to win this series to win the GOAT status from Michael Jordan? I saw that on ESPN today. And boy, is that just such low-hanging fruit conversation. You're talking about 2 vastly different players in 2 completely different eras. And instead of always trying to take away from LeBron, because that's all it is. Nobody's really comparing LeBron to Jordan. It's really just trying to diminish what LeBron's doing. Instead of just enjoying this once-in-a-lifetime player that we've had the pleasure of watching for the last 2 decades, people are just trying to diminish what he's done by saying he's not Michael Jordan. Well, spoiler alert, there's a lot of guys that have played this sport that aren't Michael Jordan, but there's not a lot of guys that have played this sport that are as talented as LeBron James. And I think it's a shame that he's always viewed through that lens, because in my opinion, and for whatever it's worth, I think he's the second best player to ever play. That's just me. Now, Stokes, you have a weird list, so
What do you mean?
Save that for a different day.
The man with the most rings is not the best? What are you talking about?
Robert Horry is not the best.
Yeah. There's a
guys,
Finals MVP award named after.
One thing, I was thinking like LeBron gets it held against him that he lost finals with that Cavs team when he first entered the league. But Michael's teams and Michael over LeBron for me. Okay. Like if you want to know, Michael over LeBron, but whatever, who cares? Michael's teams got railroaded in the playoffs by the Celtics and the Pistons, and they were undermanned. But because they didn't go to the finals and get railroaded, they got railroaded in the Eastern Conference. It's like it's held against LeBron that he drugged the Cavs to the finals where they ran into Tim Duncan and like a fully formed Spurs team. Like, God forbid they lose that series when he's passing the ball to you and me. So it irritates me. And I got so irritated last year when Skip Bayless went on there after the Lakers got swept and LeBron got his shot blocked at the end by Jamal Murray. It was a great play by Murray. And it was like LeBron comes up short again. It's like LeBron played every minute in that game. The offense went through him because AD was a no-show. And he was either guarding Joker or Murray every possession of the second half. The amount of energy that man spent in that game, and he got a great defensive play by Jamal Murray at the end, and you're going to try to say that guy choked? I just can't stand uneducated basketball talk. And I'm not the person to sit here and be like, I'm educated on basketball, but there is such low-hanging fruit conversation out there, and I feel like LeBron is just like the brunt of it.
Yeah, it's easy to criticize LeBron, whether it's win or lose is always something to take away and always some way to, say that he can't or like there's nothing he can do at this point ever to surpass Michael Jordan in many people's eyes, and that's just how it is.
Mm-hmm. And he lost in some finals, but man, he lost to some good teams. Like, I don't know if those Jordan Bulls would have beat the Durant Warriors.
No,
I don't know how they would have tried to defend them.
So, it is what it is. I just wanted to get that off my chest. He won a ring in every team he's ever played for. That's pretty impressive. Anyway, final thoughts, guys. Any guys want to get out of here?
Aside from the 1 seeds, what is your most confident pick of round 1?
Ooh.
You can do each conference if you want, or you can just give one.
For me, it's Nuggets. It is, and I'm a Nuggets fan, so I know that probably makes me sound like a homer, but you guys know me well enough that my fandom probably actually tilts me the other way. Like, I have that internal fear. But I just think, like, if I had to put my life savings on a team that is not the Celtics to win round 1, it would be the Nuggets. I just think that, they're the team that's the most buttoned up. They won a ring last year, so the pressure's off. I like the way it's setting up for them. I'm not saying the Lakers are easy, but I don't think there's a lot of easy series in these playoffs. So I'd go with the Nuggets.
Mine would be the Cavs. I don't think the Magic have anything for them. The Cavs are going to win that series. That'd be my most confident pick.
It's a good
Mine
call,
was
too.
Denver as well.
Funny enough, the Knicks are 4. Boston 1. If we're including the 1 seeds. Well, I don't know who the Thunder are playing. Let's just throw them off the page right now. Boston 1, Nuggets 2, Cavs 3 with you, Stokes. Knicks 4. I disliked what I saw from Embiid enough that I think Knicks really have a shot to really put their stamp on that. What the Mavericks and Clippers. Well, we're going to preview round 2. As I'm sitting here right now, I feel like whoever wins that series is going to the Western Conference Finals. That's where I think, unless the Clippers win and Kawhi gets hurt in the process, like something that you just can't predict. But I don't think the Thunder could really have much for the Mavericks at all. I think the Mavericks would really have their way with the Thunder, quite honestly. And I think that the Clippers would probably struggle a little bit more, but I would take either one of those teams to beat the Thunder, just matchup wise. What do you guys think about that?
I would really like to see Mavericks Thunder. I think I think that would be a 7-game series. I would end up picking Dallas just because if we do who are the best 2 players, well, Luka is better than Shea to me. And then I think the number 2s on each team, Kyrie is better than Jalen Williams. I don't mean to shrug like Jalen Williams is bad, but I think Kyrie is a better and more accomplished. He's definitely more accomplished, but I think he's still better than Jalen Williams will be. So, yeah, I would take the Mavs. I think that would be a really interesting adjustment series to see how each team deals with the other's preferred game plans.
I think I would take the Thunder in a series against the Mavs because the way that Kyrie likes to attack the basket, I feel like Chet Holmgren could get in the way of a lot of those layups, just with how long he is. And I don't think that the Mavericks have a player at center that they play consistently that would keep Chet out of the paint. So I think he'd be in there to defend some of those crazy layups that Kyrie does. Or if Luka probably weighs more than Chet Holmgren, so I mean he'd probably body him in the paint. But his arms are long as heck, so he would get in the way of a lot of that stuff in the paint. So I think I'd take the Thunder in that series. But it wouldn't surprise me in one iota if the Mavs were to win that series, or if the Clippers did, because the Clippers, I would trust them a bit more in that series versus the Thunder. But I think it'd be a really good series no matter what.
Hope we get to see it. All right. Oh, I had one last question. I was trying to think of the answer in my head. I don't have one, so I'll put the pressure on you guys while I think. After the first round, or even if you want to say after the playoffs, what player do you think his stock is going to go up the most? Like maybe if you want to say it was Brunson last year. I don't know. Would it be Brunson last year? Like who's the guy that comes into these playoffs here, and by the time the playoffs are over, he's going to be here?
I think it was Jimmy Butler last year.
Jimmy.
I think Jimmy Butler is now, this guy's making the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, I mean, doesn't mean a lot, but
he hit some really big shots, that like clutch free throws, and the fact that he was so hurt in the finals, I wasn't sure if that tarnished it, but you're right. It felt like Jimmy Butler kind of carried that team.
Yeah. So this is really kind of a question of what team do we think is going to go far? Because the team that gets knocked out in round 1,
yeah,
you don't have time for your star to rise. So if we just go through, I just have a bracket here. It can't be anyone on the Celtics, because if they win, Tatum is going to go from 6th, 7th best player in the league to 4th, 5th. You know, Jaylen Brown's not going to rise high enough to be in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The Knicks, can it be Brunson? I mean, can he go any higher? He's going to be 4th or 5th on the MVP this year.
So anybody takes out the Celtics, like if you're the reason why.
Yeah. So let's just say they get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And so he's already on a lot of MVP ballots. He can't go too much higher. It can't be Giannis. He's 3rd in MVP. Mm-hmm. 4th seed is Cleveland. It's not the Cavs. They're not going far. It's not the Magic. They're not going far. It's probably not the Pacers. They're not going to go far enough. If Tyrese Halliburton plays well, it's going to be, look what he did in the beginning of the season is just back. He was just hurt. Mm-hmm. We already think he was great.
Yeah, and how much credit would he get for beating a Bucks team without Giannis and a Knicks team that I think people still don't necessarily think of as a powerhouse?
Right. It could. So that leaves Embiid. So if the Sixers go far, Embiid start while he won MVP last year, it'll be, look, he finally did it in the playoffs. This guy is everything that we thought he was in the regular season. He's finally put it together when the pressure is cranked up the most. He lost to the Celtics, but I mean, the Celtics are historically great. That's fine. And the Heat, it's not going to be the Heat. It could be Luka. It's probably not going to be Paul George because he's not the guy on that team. He finally hit like a late shot, his first one of his career, that Gatorade commercial. 8 years later, paying off. He finally hit a game winner. The Thunder.
It's going to be Paul George. That's it.
Paul George.
Yes,
Paul George. Playoff P.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the Nuggets. It's not the Lakers. It's probably no one on Phoenix because we already think their top 2 guys are so great.
Right. And that's kind of the same thing with Luka. Like, even if Luka gets over the hump and goes to the finals, is anybody going to be like, well, now Luka's great? Like, I feel like we'd just be like, oh,
Yeah.
good, because you're finally like where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. So it's someone we're not thinking of because it always happens.
I feel like maybe Chet could be the guy if they go on a deep run. Like,
How can
if
this
they
guy not win Rookie of the Year? He's on a team that's winning. Of course, his stats are lower. His games matter.
he was a little overshadowed because Wemby was just so fantastic, and he's overshadowed by SGA, on his own team. Chet could be that guy. I will say I do think there is a path for Brown on the Celtics because his playoff was so horrendous last year that if they get into tough series, if they do win it all against a team that everybody respects, like the Nuggets, and he's like the finals MVP, I think that'll be like, oh, Jason Tatum, the Jason Tatum conversation also is kind of getting annoying. But I think Brown has a chance. And then from the Nugget standpoint, if it ends up being the Jamal Murray show, but Joker gets credit for everything because he wakes up and gets a double, and he's going to get probably 3 or 4 triple doubles in these playoffs. So even if Murray scores 40, Joker's going to get a lot of credit for it. So that probably puts a ceiling on how much you could say Jamal Murray.
It might be Jalen Williams from OKC as well. I think he's properly rated, but I think to the OKC kind of nobody knows about them buzz, that guy's good.
I got my answer. I got my answer, and I'm sticking to it now. Anthony Edwards. None of us picked him to win, but he's the guy that can do it because if he knocks off Kevin Durant and then he knocks off Joker, and he's the reason why, like, it's hard for any of us to see them going far in the playoffs without him being excellent. Like, he has to be the reason why. They were so much better. I don't want to say they were better without Towns because that sounds ignorant, but he was so much better without Towns because it forced him to like get uncomfortable and then unlocked a side of his game that I don't think was consistently there. And I think part of the problem when Towns came back, and you saw it in that Suns end of the regular season game where he turned the ball over like 10 times, is he went from like, I'm the dude, I'm going to make the play, even if it doesn't make sense, like from a basketball X's and O's standpoint, to like, okay, I got my guys back, so I'm being doubled, I'm going to kick it over here. And it's like he started getting sloppy with the ball. I think there's a path where he gets unlocked and he becomes like face of the sport level player, particularly if they make it like on a run to the finals. Because when the world gets a chance to watch him, they're going to wrap their arms around him. He has so much charisma. He's so much fun to watch. He's so intense. And his game translates to the kind of game that people can get excited about. And if he wins a couple series here, that's my answer. I don't think he's going to win one series, but I think he has a real shot.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, I mean, he's got a path to take that next step into what he's already been doing this season.
He is unbelievable on defense. He is so much fun to watch on defense. And that doesn't even speak to his offensive game. But guys, this was so much fun. I love this. I'm glad we're going to do it for the second round. Stokes, we have a little bit of an NFL draft to get ready for coming up next week. So if you guys, if you like football, Stokes, myself, and Luka, not Luka Doncic, he's going to be a little busy, but my normal podcast co-host, Luka, will be live streaming the NFL draft on this very channel. And so come in, hang out. We will react to whatever your favorite team does if it's not the Bills, but we will obviously be viewing the draft through a Bills lens. What receiver could potentially fall to the Bills at pick 28? Will they move up? What have you? But it was a lot of fun, kind of like, dipping our toes into the NBA waters here. And I'm excited for these playoffs, man. 4 games tomorrow. By the time this episode hits, it's going to be Saturday. And that just means we have not a day that goes by without an NBA playoff game for a long time. Like the first 40 days? Pretty good. All right, Magic, thanks for hopping on. We'll see you before round 2.
Thanks for having me.
Stokes, always a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
All right, we will talk to you all next time on Bills Chat, Quick Chat, NBA style.